Big Bud Tractors Incorporated was born out of the Wagner tractor dealership in Harve, Montana in 1961. Big Bud manufactured heavy-duty, high-horsepower tractors with industrial engines fitted to custom-built frames. The company developed a number of innovations for heavy-duty tractors, including tilt cabins, yeah, and a skid system for engine removal. The company was purchased by Messner Brothers in 1985. Production slowed in the late 1980s, and the last of the original Big Bud tractors rolled off the production line in and around 1991. I think it was a 450 model, a Big Bud 450. So you're very welcome back to the channel, everybody. So this week I am dealing with articulated tractors, and not just any articulated tractors, but the biggest of all articulated tractors, indeed the biggest tractor in the world. Now, in what was a fantastic week for articulated tractors, especially here in Ireland, with the show that was on last week in Longford, the Farmer Phil show, with the Massey Ferguson 1200s and 1250s. Fantastic looking weekend, the working day on Saturday and the tractor run on Sunday for cancer charity. I was really, really disappointed that I couldn't make it. I had a wedding all last weekend and I just could not make it. It would have been too much of a push. And yeah, I was sorry I couldn't make it, but I was being sent videos from guys that were taking part in it, and it looked fantastic. I have been in contact with a few of you. So Mike and Eamon and Farmer Phil, and of course the Flying Fergie Man. Yeah, they had a great show, fantastic looking machinery over at it, and well done to everybody involved. I'm sure I will catch up with you all again. So yeah, this week I am dealing with the Big Bud, and yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history. I'm going to talk about the biggest model that they produced, more so. I'm not going to dive too deep into the history behind the company, but it is pretty straightforward. And then we're going to deal with recent developments over the last year or two within the Big Bud company, and some really exciting news that has been coming out of their company. So thanks everyone for all your subscriptions from the last video. Thanks everyone for all your comments and all your views on the last video. Just a quick question that I had on the podcasts, and everyone that replied, and thank you to everyone that did. Just the reason I was asking was what I do plan on doing with all my videos that I have now, that I have produced at this stage. I, of course, have scripts for all of those videos. I have something like 60 scripts now at this stage, history scripts on obviously everything from Big Bud to the Massey Ferguson 1200 to the Force and Major to the history of John Deere, the history of Case and Dites that we had last week. And what I do plan on doing is releasing all of those on podcast form. Now, whether I will take the original audio from the YouTube videos or whether I will sit down and properly sound record all of those through the scripts that I have and release them. I have yet to decide, but I have a feeling I probably will audio all the scripts and release them as podcasts, but there will be the same story. So that's going to be happening in the next couple of months. It's something I'm going to be working on over the winter. And as I had mentioned before, I do want to get in contact with anyone that has anything interesting to say about farming or about farm machinery. And I do want to sit down with people and have conversations and release those as podcasts as well. So if there is anyone out there with interesting machinery, if there is anyone out there with something they want to say about farming, not ranting about the government or anything like that, just sit down and talk about it in general. That is something that I really, really want to push. So if you're interested, please get in contact. But for today, we're going to deal with the Big Bud, and the biggest Bud of them all was the Big Bud 747. Now, when I was growing up in the 1980s, obviously I was well familiar with what the Big Bud was, and it was the biggest tractor in the world. And you'd see pictures of it in the odd book or magazine. There was no internet in those days, even into the 90s. And I was always under the impression that there was only ever one Big Bud tractor. But I couldn't be more wrong. There's actually roughly 550 Big Bud tractors have been produced throughout the 1970s and 1980s. Now, there was only one Big Bud 747, or the 16V 747 as it was called. It is the largest So the Big Bud 747 or the 16V 747 Big Bud is a large custom-built farm tractor built in Harve, Montana, and that was built in 1977. And it has a horsepower of 1,100, a massive machine. So if you took all the 1200s maybe that were at the show last week, compile them all together, all the horsepowers together, you might come up with something around the size of the Big Bud 747. It's enormous. It is built by the owners as the exhibition and exhibitors as the world's largest farm tractor, and it is about twice the size of many of the largest production tractors in the world, depending on the parameter. So looking at the history then of the company, so the first two Big Bud tractors out of Harve, Montana plant were the 250 series, the 250 series, and were purchased by Leonard Semenza from Semenza Farms in 1968, located between Fort Benton, Montana and Chester, Montana, on his 35,000 acre farm. The 747 tractor was designed by Wilbur Hensler and built by Ron Harmon and the employees of his Northern Manufacturing Company at the cost of $300,000 at the time. A lot of money back in 1977. It was made for the Rossi brothers, Elmer and Melvin, cotton farmers from Bakersfield or Old River, California. The tractor was used on a 20,000 acre Rossi brothers farm for 11 years. It was then purchased by Willowbrook Farms of Florida. Both farms used it for deep ripping. Now, we have a lot of farms in Ireland. We have a lot of farms in the UK. A lot of my viewers from the UK, when you think about a farm, that's 20,000 acres, and this tractor was one of the only tractors that was working that farm. It's just mind-boggling to think about it. The 747, the Big Bud 747, would cultivate, I think it was around 1.2 acres a minute. So yeah, that's staggering to think that. So in 1997, after the period of disuse, it was purchased by Robert and Randy Williams of Big Sandy, Montana, within 60 miles, roughly 100 kilometers, of where it was built. It was used on the Williams Brothers farms in Chateau County, to pull an 80-foot, 24-meter cultivator covering 1.3 acres per minute at a speed of 13 kilometers an hour. That's a colossal amount of ground to cover in 1 minute. The United Tire Company of Canada, which made the tractor's custom 8-foot, 2.4-meter tires, went bankrupt in 2000, partially contributing to a decision to stop using the tractor for regular work in July 2009 and to move the Big Bud 747 to museums. So the tires on it, the wheels on it, were so big, so specialized that only one company made them. And when that company went bankrupt or closed down, literally they could not get tires anywhere else to fit them. So that was one of the reasons, one of the decisions to retire it at that stage, the 747 at that stage, into a museum. So after its work on the farm, it was displayed at the Heartland Acres Agribition Center in Independence, Iowa. In 2014, the Big Bud 747 was moved to the Heartland Museum in Clarion, Iowa, on indefinite loan from the Williams brothers. The museum constructed a separate shed for the tractor in 2013, and Big Bud has since gone back to Montana. On July 14, 2020, Big Brother's original 8-foot tall construction tires were replaced with Goodyear LSW 1400 30R 46 tires, which are slightly under 7 foot tall, with new rims provided by the Williams Brothers to fit them. The new tires brought the width of the Big Bud just to over 25 foot. The Big Bud 747 returned to the Williams Brothers farm near Sandy, Montana in September 2020, where it worked farm ground once again with an 80-foot wide Friggstad chisel plough. And there it is to this day. And there's plenty of videos of this tractor working on YouTube. And even if you go onto the Big Bud website itself, there is a Big Bud 747 particular website just for this tractor. It's working on, to have a look at it. It's something else to see this machine working. Incredible machine. So yeah, rumors of the iconic powerful tractor. Many farmers grew up, but making a return to production has had soil lovers salivating for years. Then there it was, all 7,000 pounds of it on display. The Big Bud created a huge buzz at the Con Expo in Las Vegas in 2023. So just last year, the new Big Bud has been, I won't say launched, but it has been on display, the new machine that is going into production. So, biggest and the baddest, anyone growing up in the Midwest remembers the legendary tractor made by Ron Harmon and the Northern Manufacturing Company. An estimated 550 tractors were built and sold from the 1970s to the 80s, with the last run in 1991. The high horsepower articulated tractors were some of the biggest and baddest in the fields, tugging a 35,000 pound cultivator down rows at acres a minute. They were heavy duty, American-made workaholics designed for mega farms like those in the Canadian wheat belt and the vast western plains spread where farmers could be found ploughing. These machines were cherished for holding their value, and many are still in use. Most of all, farmers loved them for their ease, which they could be worked on, and yes, they were gigantic. So we spoke earlier about the ease to work on and the skid system for the engine. So basically, when you want to take the engine out, it just slides out. Um, these machines are built, they're designed to be very, very simple to work on. And many of the Big Bud company itself, over the period of time from 1991 up until now, when they started remanufacturing the tractor itself, has been involved in the taking a lot of the old ones back, refurbishing them because they're so big. Like you don't scrap a machine like this really. They've been taken, new engines, putting them, engines rebuilt, transmissions rebuilt, axles rebuilt, basically put back out to work again because they are such a valuable machine at this stage. They're workaholics and they're very, very easy to work on. Very little electronics on them. Simple hydraulics, and easy to drive, easy to operate, old and rugged but reliable machines. So the Big Bud 747, the one off that rolled off the factory in 1977, it's considered the largest, as we said, farm tractor in the world. It makes the International Harvester look like a Mini Cooper. So that was just a comment from one of the marketing materials from back in the day. And the 747, it weighs in at roughly 60 ton, fully ballasted with 1,000 gallon fuel tank. Not 1,000 litre, 1,000 gallon, so about 5,000 litre fuel tank topped off at 1,100 horsepower. Nothing in the American heartland could touch it. But by the mid-1990s, the 747 went the way of the Dodo, as did the rest of the line when United Tire Company of Canada went out of business. It was the only manufacturer making the 8-foot-high tyres large enough for Harmon's beasts. Without tyres, demands for the monster tractor slowly dried up. Decades after its debut, the Big Bud still attracts a crowd at farm shows. 1,100 horsepower, this Williams Brothers owned 747, the largest ever made, and spend its winter big equipment in Harve, Montana. So moving into modern times then, and the Bud is back. So fast forward to 2023, early in 2023, when Harmer had a notion the iconic tractor is due for a return. Following feedback from farmers, he thinks the time is right to get Big Bud back into the field. I've been in business since '74. Back then, there were 10 or 15 manufacturers making different types of machinery. Today, they're down to roughly 3. So you can take that down to John Deere, AGCO, and Case. And really, they're all wrapped up into that small amount of companies that have control over it. And really, only one is American made, and that's John Deere. In the tractor industry, lack of competition and advances in technology has made life more difficult for end users. Proprietary technology and parts, computer-driven components, and complicated service manuals means that when farmers have a breakdown in the field, they often have to wait days or weeks or months even for the availability of parts or a specially trained technician to show up wielding a laptop. There is nothing Harman wants more than to give farmers control while selling them a tractor. Big Bud starts with a rugged 1.5-inch thick frame, and components like the transmission and gearbox are easy to access. What we are offering is to get back to a tractor that is ruggedly and simply built that anyone can work on, Harman said. Everything slides out of the tractor. It really is the complete opposite of what we are seeing today going on in the industry. It puts the farmer back in control. After all, he's the guy that writes the checks for it. And that is a huge topic in America at the minute, especially with John Deere and the right to repair issues that have been going on over the locking out of software and stuff like that, and locking out of the ability for guys to, actually do work on their own machinery that they might have paid 3, 4, 500,000 euro for, that they're kind of locked into going back to the dealer to do certain things in it because they're so sophisticated that literally nothing can be done in regards of fit new components that have to be taught in, have to be learned. Anyone that's involved in mechanics will understand the complexities that are out there these days. But what Harman wants to do, what he has done with this new tractor, is stripped it right back again as much as he can. Obviously, there is regulations around emissions and stuff like that they will still have to comply with. But this new tractor that they have designed, the one that has been on show, obviously it has a Caterpillar, I think it's a C18 engine, has a Caterpillar transmission. It has construction spec hydraulics on it, construction spec front and rear axles out of Caterpillar loading shovels. So this is a construction spec tractor. Now there will be a lightened down version of it, still with heavy duty components, but these are tractors that anyone can work on. You can slide the engine and transmission, the hydraulics and that out of them quite easily. The cab is updated, obviously. It is an AGCO cab on it that you would have be familiar from the Challengers and stuff like that. From the videos, not that I've seen, it looks like the Challenger cab from maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But the technology that's in the tractor, some of it is 30 years old, but has stood the test of time. All new components, but they're tried and tested components that have been in the construction sector with Caterpillar for over 30 years now, and they're off-the-shelf components. So if you have a break in a planetary hub, or if you have issues with a hydraulic pump, you can go to a Caterpillar supplier, you can go to a Big Bud, you can go to most places and be able to pick one off the shelf for this machine, and you can fit it yourself. There's no much teaching in electronics involved with it. So yeah, that's a really, really good thing to say from a technician's point of view. From me looking at it from the outside in, it can only be a good thing for owners and operators. So back to the script. So reinventing reliability. The all-new Big Bud will be modelled off blueprints from the original best-selling Big Bud 500 and the 700. It will feature an 18-litre Cat engine that will be good for 650 to 750 horsepower. This scaled-down, old-school Big Bud will still be one of the largest farm tractors on the planet. Many of the parts required to build and repair it will come from the mining sector, including its meaty 85,000-pound axles. We use largely Cat components. Our criteria is we like to see proven technology and parts out there for 10 to 15 years or more. Anything new to the market, we aren't interested in. This is quote from Mr. Harman. While the reborn Big Bud is a back-to-basics piece of machinery, it will not be without some creature comforts. A state-of-the-art, redesigned AGCO cab shall provide the kind of fingertip control most operators have grown accustomed to, and without creating a spaceship-style motherboard that controls everything. We all like electronics, but what you won't see in our tractors is a master computer system special to Big Bud that operates everything, Harman said. Anytime you limit the owner or the independent mechanic, it further strains the reliability of whoever the closest dealer is. The ability to locate a part or find time to get an authorized technician out to fix it. From the beginning, we set out to prove that you can still build a piece of equipment in 2023 for anyone that can build or work on. Servicing farm equipment is something that Harman and his employees know all about. For the past 4 decades, Big Equipment has been in the business of repairing and rebuilding large tractors, many of them Big Buds still in use. Several years ago, Harman decided to partner with the Rome Plough Company based in Cedartown, Georgia, to reintroduce the American-made tractor that would hold its value because of its rugged durability and versatility. Those plans were put on ice after a fire Christmas Eve in 2017 completely razed the hometown plant in Harv, but Harman is not a man easily put off by disappointment. Last week at I'm reading off the script. So last year at Con Expo in Las Vegas, proof of his dream and the rebirth of a legend was the talk of the industry as thousands marveled at the shiny new prototype. And there's more where that came from. We have several fabricated frames all ready to go, Harman said. Production will be done out of a leased facility while Harman rebuilds his own factory. Our production will be held to match demand. Demand seems to be pretty high to us right now. He said we can get as many as 30 to 40 tractors out of a facility that we're currently working out of. So Harman expects the rollout of 10 big buds in 2023 to start. Tractors sell more tractors, so he hopes to get back to the days when his company was churning out 130 tractors a year at its peak build. We want to be strategic, he added. We can probably sell all our own tractors right up here in Montana, but that's not the point. We want to spread them across the country. Let's see what these things are capable of. So let's not make any mistake. What Harman is doing is big, perhaps even bigger than the Big Bud 747. He's not simply remarketing a machine known for its old school durability after 40-year hiatus. Harman's reintroduction of the Big Bud, it really is a game changer. In a world that has experienced consolidation of manufacturers for nearly everything we buy and use at a point near monopolies, and acknowledging design obsolescence is now the standard. A little machinery shop in Montana is set to revolutionize the manufacturing industry. If the return of the Big Bud proves successful, if these sturdy American-made tractors prove as functional, standardized, serviceable, and long-lasting as they're built to be, it will be the remark of return of common sense in engineering and American agriculture. And I, for one, would be all for that. Back to basics, back to strongly built, well built, over engineered, non electronic systems that are just rugged and reliable and will stand the test of time, like the 1200s, like the 1250s that we saw working last weekend over at Longford, because it is the fact that they are so simple in today's modern terms, simply built levers and pulleys and cables, as opposed to solenoids and actuators and CAN bus and LIN bus systems that at the slightest hint of moisture or rain or shock can knock a 40-pin block connector and cause codes to come up into machinery. We're all familiar with anyone that's involved with modern machinery, be it tractors, cars, forklifts, anything. Things need to change. They need to get a little bit more back to where they used to be, in my estimation. And this is great to see. So that's it. That's the video. That's what's happening. It's one that I will be keeping a very, very close eye on. The rollout of the new machines, and hopefully it is a success for them, and we will see a little bit of pressure put on the bigger manufacturers. But you would wonder, with AGCO selling them old cabs, and there is a little bit of reliance there on them. How long is it going to last? Are they going to let, if Big Bud started making inroads into certain AGCO machinery, where will there become a little bit of conflict, as we've seen many times before AGCO come knocking on the door and maybe try to buy them out or something. Anyway, it is what it is. That's the history. That's the Big Bud. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you've got this far, thanks for watching, and I will see everybody next week.